do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
President John F. Kennedy giving his famous inaugural address in January of 1961, nearly 64 years ago. Kennedy's speech, punctuated by his iconic call to civic action, came close to never happening at all because of a little-known assassination attempt that went awry just 1 month before his inauguration. Joining us now, New York Times bestselling author Brad Meltzer. He's co-author of the new book, The JFK Conspiracy, The Secret Plot to Kill Kennedy and Why It Failed. Brad, good morning. It's great to have you on. I guess the first and most obvious question is, all these years later, why didn't we know about this? Mike Barnicle did know about it, of course, because he's Mike Barnicle. But why doesn't the general public know more about this attempted assassination of JFK?
Because on the day after it happened, it was big news in Florida, which is where it happened, in Palm Beach. But two planes collided over New York City, and everyone died on board except for one young boy. America became obsessed with this sole survivor. And as a result, it took this JFK assassination story and knocked it from the front page into the center of the newspaper, and it became a footnote until Josh Mensch and I said, you know what? This is a really interesting idea for a book.
So we're talking about December of 1960. JFK has been elected but has not yet been inaugurated. Walk us through the details a little bit of what happened.
Yeah, so this is 3 years before Lee Harvey Oswald takes the famous shot. And we're on a beautiful sunny day in Palm Beach. And it's, as you said, right after he's elected, before the inauguration, and JFK's on his way to church. And what he doesn't know is there's a disgruntled former postal worker named Richard Pavick who wants to kill him. And he's packed his car with 7 sticks of dynamite. And as JFK comes out of his house, he doesn't realize Pavick's hiding there. Pavick picked Palm Beach because he thinks JFK's security is weaker there, which he's right about. So as JFK leaves, all this assassin has to do is hit the little trigger mechanism, and boom, will go the dynamite. And what saves JFK's life that day, I won't ruin the ending for you, but it has to do with Jackie. And it is the start of one of the craziest JFK stories you've never heard in your life.
You know, Brad, I believe that Pavick worked in the South Postal Annex in Boston. And so there's some familiarity in New England still of people of a certain age, remnants of this story. But it is amazing that this story has been it has disappeared. It never really surfaced and had legs as a story. And I think Pavick just died in the mid-'70s or early '70s up in New Hampshire, but remained anonymous for all that time. How does it happen? Even though, you know, the news business and there's no social media back then, but still, it was a critical component of of JFK's assuming the presidency that has been missed by history until now.
Yeah, you know, and I just love a good story. And what I loved about this story is it doesn't just tell the story of JFK or Pavick, but it also involves Jackie. And we don't pull our punches there. We show you JFK's affairs. You see that when Jackie goes into labor and she's hemorrhaging, that JFK is nowhere to be found. He's on his way on a plane to Florida. And what was fascinating to me is, as I was researching the book, I kept saying, well, where does Camelot come from? We always call it Camelot, but where does that start? And I finally realized it's after JFK is actually killed. When he dies after the assassination, Jackie grants one interview to Life magazine, and she has the reporter over and tells him this exclusive story that basically when JFK was alive and his back was hurting him in the White House, what she used to do was put on his favorite record, a song about a place called Camelot. And we forget that Jackie was a reporter in her early days, so she was a member of the press. She was obviously hounded by the press, but make no mistake, she was a master of the press. Jackie's the one who inserted that word Camelot into our lexicon. She's the one who put it there, writing JFK's legacy before anyone else could. So As my wife said, her favorite parts of this book are watching their marriage and watching what Jackie does. She's so savvy.
You know, and I believe the reporter that she spoke to from Life magazine was Theodore H. White.
It was Theodore H. White who got that famous thing. He was there until after midnight. She worked on that speech. And what I think is so important to remember is the Kennedys, you know, JFK and Jackie are our first celebrity presidents. And I don't mean, you know, obviously every president's famous in their own way, and Lincoln waves off the back of trains the same way Truman does. But talking about Hollywood famous, right? That Hollywood celebrity that people have chased so badly with the fame and the houses and the money. And for me, we all know it's a hollow pursuit. And you can say some people think that that's what Reagan is. Some people think it's what the Obamas are. Some people think it's, of course, what Trump is. But to me, all of them have been cosplaying JFK and Jackie. And what isn't a hollow pursuit, though, fame may be hollow, but you know what isn't? Is hope. And what JFK did in that inaugural address was give the world hope again. And right now, as we're on that precipice of getting another inaugural address, and the one you're showing right now is one of the greatest ever written, we all know leadership's not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. That's what JFK did better than anyone, is unleashing that hope.
So, Brad, it's also striking to me that there are few moments in American history that are more highly scrutinized than the assassination attempt that was successful of JFK, and yet we know so little about this one. So my question to you is, after this moment does happen in 1960, maybe the public wasn't that aware of it, but certainly President-elect at that point Kennedy was, the Secret Service was, the team was. Were there any adjustments made? Were there any things did they take into effect? Was there any legacy of that attempt on him, 3 years before Dallas?
You know, the head of the Secret Service at the time said that in his history of doing this, this is the closest anyone has come to killing a U.S. president, which, of course, makes them make adjustments. And we, at the end of the book, we, of course, start with this assassination that didn't happen. We end, of course, showing you Jackie's point of view of what happened in the real assassination. And what strikes me is, of course, how unprepared they are even 3 years later when they know what's coming. But to me, what is so interesting, if you want to know who killed JFK in the assassination, it's if you look in the 60s, when JFK dies, we blame it on the Russians. We blame it on our enemies at the height of the Cold War. The Cubans did it. The Russians, the Soviets did it. If you look in the 70s, as Watergate peaks and we mistrust the government, who killed JFK? It was our own government did it. LBJ did it. The CIA did it. If you look in the 80s, as the Godfather movies peak, guess who killed JFK? It was the mob. So if you want to know who killed JFK, it's decade by decade whoever America is most afraid of at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm. And this story is so fascinating, so many details that most people don't know, including the help of a mail carrier in foiling the plot by reading some of this guy's postcards. Fascinating. The new book, The JFK Conspiracy, The Secret Plot to Kill Kennedy and Why It Failed, is on sale now. New York Times bestselling author Brad Meltzer. Brad, congrats on the book, and thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.